stand back here because I have a huge mouth. So I am a Voodoonauts, and so my very first year, my first and only year, working with the Voodoonauts, Yvette gave this wonderful thing about and Ganos, and I was really like impressed by it, and I was trying to figure out how to write a story in this style. And it started this story. This story fails spectacularly as an Engano. It's like horrible. It does not do the job. But I love what it became. So, it's a little background. This story takes place on Chicago's West Side. It's in the near future, where police now use these Boston Dynamics robots in order to do their job. And so a young man who is known as the fastest person in his community is being hired by someone to help trap one of these robots so they can sell it for parts. His only job is to go ahead, bait the robot, run away, get it to run into a trap so they can go ahead and take it apart. And this is the point where that story starts. That night, the only difference from his imagining was the block was a bit more crowded than usual. Tariq realized that despite trying to seem casual, people had come out to see him run. They were watching him to see what he would do next. So here it goes. Tariq stretched and limbered his body. He called attention to his joints and muscles. Running wasn't just leg work. His entire body was springs and rubber bands, launching him through the air when he ran. It was important all of him was ready, and if it was, he knew space would part and gesture at the track before him. Sorry. I have horrible time blindness. I just want to make sure I'm not going over.
I'll let you know.
Thank you so much. Go ahead. Tariq eyeballed the large chunk of concrete near the edge of the sidewalk. All he had to do was wait for the interceptor to come his way. He also noticed that some of Carlton's guys kept getting people off the street. They were firm, but kind. It wouldn't do to have people cause a scene now. Peppa's robots, one of the things I love to do in my stories is like make slang for the future. And so like slang for police officers is Peppa's, as in Peppa Pig. All right. Peppa's robots were still pretty bad at identifying people when they were darker than a paper bag. It would be bad if the interceptor went after the wrong person. Tariq almost missed it. In his periphery, Tariq saw a cat-like robot come around the corner. The interceptor's movement was smooth and natural. Its body was almost rectangular box with its legs like cheetah's limbs. It was still down away, but about to cross the street on its patrol. Tariq pressed the button on the device around his wrist. The light flashed green. He grabbed the concrete chunk, raised it, and threw it through the window of Mr. Jones's Jamaican jerk. The sound was loud and intentional in its disruption of the West Side night. The interceptor stopped, walking in mid-stride. Frame tilting in the direction of the sound of the broken glass, it didn't have eyes, but cracks said that it could see 360 degrees. That meant it didn't have to face Tariq to see Tariq. It also meant that the robot's cameras had seen him break the window because, unlike humans, the robot's attention did not require directional focus. The destruction of property was certainly a crime that would be addressed, except the interceptor didn't move. Come on, thought Tariq as he gently bounced from foot to foot. Every part of him wanted to run, but it would do no good to take off and let if the interceptor didn't pursue. And if Tariq put too much distance between him and the robot, then it would just report him to headquarters and they would have video of him breaking the window. Tariq would be picked up by the morning. The interceptor made several false starts. Then Tariq understood that the robot was probably waiting for some signal from the Peppas, but Tariq was blocking the signal. If he kept blocking the signal, then the interceptor wouldn't chase him. No chase, no capture, no money, no win. Tariq tried to figure out what to do next. Maybe if the interceptor started, and this time it completed a step. Then it was coming at Tariq, chewing up pavement and sounding like an old school lawnmower. Tariq spun on the ball of his left foot. It took his body no time to switch from static to subsonic. The world became still beneath Tariq's feet, mounting its own energy so that it could push him forward. His legs made of foam and stilled and propelled by their rejection from the surface of the ground. Tariq was ready to be fast. He never noticed the first step. It was invisible to his mind. But had he noticed it, he would have felt the bottom of his shoes pull the asphalt into itself, the explosion of muscles in his heart as they spat energy-rich blood into his muscles. He would have felt the vessels grow with joyous red fury. And Tariq was gone, just as the interceptor realized that it might have a chase on its carbon-fibered hand. When it did, it had to calculate the change in friction due to the salt, sugar, and roses that circled the ground where Tariq had stood. Tariq's chest easily exchanged air, an efficient bellows breathing on the fire of his limbs. The world split before him and slid through the space the way a steel splinter slides through skin. When Tariq sliced open his hand through the air, all of time and space made exception for him. And the interceptor was right on his heels. It went from the friendly trot of a dog to the distance-eating screech of a cheetah. Its body trembled with the violence of a combustion engine, all the while trying to send a signal to the nearest squad car without success. Over the wind in his ears, Tariq could hear the yells and cheers in Doppler. He was able to notice the princes and princesses of North Lawndale watching him, all of them clapping and pumping fists, hopping and leaping in delight and vengeance. As his slicing hand came up past his face, he saw a yellow blur rather than a green one. He was moving too fast. He looked behind him to see that the interceptor was already really far behind. Tariq began to adjust his breathing and shorten his stride. He was just too fast. And he was almost to the end. It was almost to the end when Tariq saw that Carlton had spotters along the route, and they were checking on his progress and making sure the trap was ready. And the trap was a building's doorway with 10 blocks away. The building was abandoned. The doorway was actually a facade structure to look like a doorway, but inside of it was something called a Faraday cage. No signals can get in or out of that cage. And Crack got this idea from the bags that used to make her put her cell phone in when she was in school. His breathing was good. His legs made the ground beneath him feel immaterial. He was good. He was happy. He could keep this up for another 2 miles before he even felt winded. And Tariq saw 3 flashes of a flashlight, and that was the spotter signal that everything was ready at the trap. Tariq pushed down Roosevelt and weaved between the cars. He noticed that the interceptors lost speed on turns. Everything lost speed on turns, except him. Physics was made a lie.